Good morning, everybody. This is Kendra, and I'm coming to you live today for our January Embroidery Club. And this month, we are going to be doing the Trapunto Snowflake Table Runner. So this is really cute, and I can see some people already jumping on this morning. So when you jump on, make sure you say hello. Let me know that you are watching. We have lots of door prizes to give away today, so I'm super excited to get going with this project. And along with this project, when you signed up, you received the kit. So if you're brand new and watching from somewhere, since we are doing this live on our Facebook page, you can be watching it from anywhere in the world. So let me know where you're watching from. Let me know that you... I see Celia said that she can't hear me. Can everybody else hear me? Yes, I hope so. Got it, she says. Okay, good. Okay, so let me know where you're watching from. Or maybe you have a friend that also likes to do embroidery, and maybe you guys don't live close to each other. This is a way for you guys to connect and sew together with each other. So how this works is you go to pnqs.net. That is our webpage. You can sign up for our embroidery club that way. Once you sign up for the embroidery club, you will receive the monthly project that we are doing. And this month we are doing the Trapunto Snowflake Runner. And you will also receive a kit with all the fabrics that you need to complete this project. So super fun way to maybe expand your embroidery skills, maybe get to know your machine a little bit better. It's so exciting to see all of the new things that you can do and all the different techniques that you can do with your embroidery machine. So that's what we're going to be working on today, is this fun little snowflake runner. So let's jump right in and get started. So once you got your kit, you received some fabrics in there. So you received a light gray fabric. There was quite a bit of this. There was a yard of it. You also received a dark gray fabric that looked like this. This is going to be for your binding. You received a white piece of fabric with these little white on white dots on there. So this is going to be for your snowflakes, for the center of your snowflakes that we're going to embroider out. And then you also received some gray accent fabric, this gray fabric with the little snowflakes on there. So let me tell you what we're going to do with that fabric. So the first thing that I want you to do is get your designs loaded onto your USB sticks. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. So what I want you to do is pull out your CD. Some of you got a CD, some of you received a download code where you had to go onto the computer and download those designs. So once you get those all downloaded and get them onto your USB stick, I just want to show you what that looks like once you either get the download or put your disc in your machine. And hopefully I can show you this. It's a bit bright and sunny out here today in Minnesota, even though it's like a balmy 2 degrees or something like that. Who would have thought that it would be cold in January? But there's a little bit of a glare on my computer screen. So let me bring you over here so you can see. And hopefully this works. Okay, I think you can see. So once you get it loaded, you'll see all of these formats for the different designs, and you'll see that there's Bernina listed twice on there. You can either run the ART files or you can run the EXP files. I like to run the EXP files for my machine. So I just grabbed that folder that I needed and I moved those files over onto my USB stick. But also down here on the bottom are our instructions, and there's also some templates. So you can go ahead and print off the instructions. They're going to print off, they're going to look like this. And these are really easy for you to follow along with. There's also some video tutorials if you want to look those up. It gives you the address there. Otherwise, you can just sew along right with me and I will go over everything as well. So make sure you print off those instructions and get those files moved over to your USB stick. So that's the first thing that you need to do. Okay, let me bring you back over here to me. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do and that we're going to be using is I'm going to be using the maxi hoop on my Bernina 880 this morning. And I have my maxi hoop right here. I'm also going to be using some OESD Aqua Mesh Stabilizer. So that is also something that you want to have on hand. If you don't have the Aqua Mesh, you could use something like a lightweight poly mesh cutaway. That would be good as well. So let me just get myself organized real quick here. I moved some stuff around at the last minute, and you'd think I would know where I put it. Here it is. Okay, so I already have some poly mesh that is cut to the size of my hoop. Or, sorry, I'm using Aqua Mesh. I mentioned that you could also use poly mesh, but Aqua Mesh, I have it cut to the size of my hoop. The other thing that I'm going to be using today that's going to help us, not so much with just hooping the Aqua Mesh, but when we go to hooping our whole quilt sandwich, is my Master Hooper. So if you don't have one of those, look it up. I really do like my Master Hooper. It makes all the difference in the world. We'll get into that a little bit later. But if you look at your instructions, the very first thing that it says is to go ahead and hoop your stabilizer. And we're just going to hoop the stabilizer only right now. So I'm going to go ahead. Let me move you over here so you can see what I'm doing. And again, if you're watching and you have any questions as I'm going along, go ahead and type them in the comments. If I see your comment, I'll go ahead and answer it. If not, I go back through and read through all the comments once I'm done with everything, and I will answer it then. So we're just going to go ahead and hoop our Aqua Mesh Stabilizer, and I just make sure that it's nice and tight in there by just tugging a little bit on the sides. But I also want to make sure that I use my thumbs and push this inner black hoop just a little bit to the back side, so I have that nice little lip there. You can kind of see the shadowing right here. That just is going to protect the bed of my sewing machine from any scratches or anything from the vibration of the embroidery. So we have that all hooped, and that is good to go. Okay, the next thing that we want to do, and I'm just going to set my hoop over here off to the side, is your piece of your light gray fabric. You have a yard of that. What I want you to do with that is open it up, and if you need to give it a press, you can. It's not super important to give it a press because we'll take care of that later. But what I want you to do is go ahead and take your ruler, and you need to cut. We are only going to be making our table runner with 6 blocks in it instead of the 12. So what you need to do is you need to cut 6 pieces of background fabric out of this gray fabric, and those block pieces need to be cut 7 by 8.5 inches. So if you make a cut from your folded edge down to your selvage of 8.5 inches, then you can go and you can subcut your 7 inches, and you will get all 6 pieces out of one cut. So that's what I want you to go ahead and do. I've already cut mine. So here is my 7 by 8.5 inch piece of fabric. And the next thing that you want to do is turn your iron on if you have an iron handy. And I'm going to turn mine on so it starts warming up here. Is you're also going to want to cut some shape flex if you have that, or a fusible woven if you have that. Cut that to the size of your squares. And then what we're going to do, this is my shape flex, my fusible woven here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that to the iron, and we are going to iron that onto the back side of our fabric. And we're going to get that ready. While the iron is heating up, the next thing that you want to do is you want to take your white piece of fabric and you're going to cut a piece that is 4 inches wide, and you need 6 4-inch squares out of this white piece of fabric. So I have my strip already cut at 4 inches wide, but I'm going to go ahead and cut my 4-inch squares. I'm going to cut the selvage part off, get rid of that because we don't want that, and I'm just going to cut a 4-inch square. There I have 2 4-inch squares cut. Again, you need 6 of them. I already have a couple that I have gotten ready ahead of time. So you need 6 of these 4-inch squares all together. And the next thing that you're going to do is you are going to take your little gray fabric with the snowflakes on there, and you need to cut out 4 2-inch squares for each block that we're going to do, and we're going to do 6 blocks. So you need 24 2-inch squares of this little gray snowflake fabric. Okay, so my iron is still warming up. I had it on earlier and then I got busy and shut it off, or it shut off on its own. So now it's just warming up again. Okay, so the other thing that you need to have handy is some batting scraps. Who has extra batting scraps laying around? This is a great stash buster for those extra batting scraps. So I have a couple little pieces of batting scraps. You're going to need a 4-inch square for each one. Otherwise, I just have like little strips of batting. And as long as the outline is covered all the way around, and I'll show you that when we get to it, you'll be fine. But 4-inch squares is typical. So you will need 6 4-inch squares of extra batting if you have that laying around. Okay, my iron is all warmed up. Let me see how I'm going to do this. I'll move this up here so you can see. Okay. Connie says she has lots of batting scraps. Me too. Okay, so here is my block with my shape flex on the back side. So I'm just going to go ahead and fuse this down. And I just hold it on there and just slowly move it all the way to the bottom, just to make sure that it's nice and fused in place. And I'm using my little Laura Star lift iron. If you haven't tried one of those out, stop in the store, check it out. I love my little lift. All right, and then I'm just going to flip it over and give it a little press, maybe a little steam. Get it all nice and smooth on the front side as well. It's like a little eyelash on there. All right, that one is done, and now I'm going to go ahead and do the same with the next one. And I'm just going to do 2 of these to get them ready. You'll have some time while it's embroidering to go back and cut more fabric or fuse more of your shape flex on the back side of your other pieces. All right, so that is all ready. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my hoop again and bring it back over here to me. Kathleen said her series number did not work. She got an error message. Okay, Kathleen, send me an email, and after the class, I will help you get that figured out. Judy's asking if I usually use steam with Shape Flex. If I'm just ironing on, once I flip it back over and I'm ironing on the front side, if I need a little steam to get it smoothed out, I'll use some steam there. Okay, so now I have my hoop all hooped up with my aqua mesh in my maxi hoop. I'm going to bring my hoop over to my machine. And today I'm embroidering on my Bernina 880 crystal. Let's see if I can straighten it out so it's not crooked. And I'm going to zoom it in a little bit so you can see the screen. Joni's asking if we put Shape Flex on all of the fabric. Just on the back side of your background fabric. Just on the back side of that light gray background fabric, Joni, is all you need to put the Shape Flex on. Donna said she also got the error. Okay, Donna, just also send me an email. Kendra@pnqs.net is my email address. So send it to me there and we will get you all squared away. Okay, so once you have your designs on your USB stick, you put your USB stick in your machine. Here's all the folders. So again, I want the Bernina EXP ones. I'm going to pull that up. And in here, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. You can see the little quilting designs, and then there's a Snowflake number 1 and Snowflake number 2. So I'm going to choose Snowflake number 1. And it pulls up the design just like this. Okay, so through my needle, I have isocord thread, and I have a big spool of the isocord thread, and this is color 15 from isocord. And in my bobbin, I just have the white OESD bobbin thread in there. That's what works well for me. I do have a embroidery needle in my hoop. Jean is saying this is the first time being here with us. Welcome, Jean. So to get the designs, you would have to have signed up through pnqs.net. You can go to clubs, classes, and events, and you will see our embroidery clubs listed there. That also gets you in for the door prizes. And we are all sold out for the January event, but make sure to catch us next month in February, and I'll be showing you what we are doing in February here in a little bit. Okay, so what I want to do is I pulled up the Snowflake number 1 design. It shows it right here. I'm going to go to the needle and let my machine know that I'm ready to begin. And it's going to automatically go to right where it needs to be to the start point. So you don't have to worry about getting your anything hooped correctly or straight, because it's going to stitch out a placement line directly onto the stabilizer, and that's where we place our background fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch out that placement line right now. And I'm going to bring this down a little bit so you can see the needle and what is stitching. And it's kind of hard to see because it's white thread on a white background. Okay, so here is the white, you can see, and it stitched it all the way around on my hoop. So I can go ahead and take my background fabric, place it so that it fits right inside that line, and you want to check all 4 sides and make sure it's covered on all 4 sides all the way around. And once you get it in there, you can use some tape to tape it down and hold it in place, or you can just lightly hold it in place with your fingers. Just make sure that you keep your fingers clear of the embroidery needle, or the needle of your machine as it's going around. So I'm just gonna lightly hold it, and we're gonna tack this background fabric in place so it doesn't move out of the way. And you just want to make sure that it's nice and smooth in there. There's not any little bubbles or anything like that. And I'm just going to clip this extra stabilizer out of the way so you guys can see what's happening so it's not flopped up there. All right, got that out of the way. Okay, so the next thing that we're gonna do, let me show you. You can see in the corner where it's stitched all the way around. So now what we need is our little 2-inch gray pieces of our Snowflake fabric. And what we're gonna do with that is we are going to take, and you can do this one at a time or you can do all 4, whichever you would like. You're gonna take your little piece of gray Snowflake fabric, you're gonna flip it so it's right side down, and you want to fit it in this corner so it lines up perfectly with that stitched corner. And mine is moving a little bit because I'm holding it up, but I'm gonna put my hoop back on the machine. I'm gonna go in and put my little piece of my corner fabric so that those raw edges of the Snowflake fabric are lined up with that tack down line. And I'm just gonna lightly hold it in place. Again, I'm away from my needle, and I'm just gonna let this tack this piece of fabric down. And I'll show you once it gets tacked down. Okay, so this is making your little corner pieces of your fabric. So again, it's right side down, so your right sides are together, and it just tacks it down with this diagonal stitch line here. So the idea is when we're all done with our project and we can take it out of the hoop, we're gonna fold this corner up, and we just have this little corner is all pieced in place for us already. So that's what we're doing here. So now it's moving over to the next corner on the other side, and we're gonna do the same thing there. So I'm going to take my little 2-inch square piece of fabric, right side down, so my right sides are together, lining up the raw edge so it is all lined up with that tack down line on the background fabric, and we're just going to stitch this in place. And again, you can tape it or you can just lightly hold it. If you're lightly holding it, just be aware of the needle so you don't sew through your finger. So it's going to go around, and we're going to do this on all 4 corners. So now I'm going down to the bottom left-hand corner, and I'm doing that again. Lining up so that those raw edges are lined up with that tack down line, and we're going to tack it down. And I'll show you again once we're all done. And again, now the bottom right-hand corner, we're going to put this in here, line up the raw edges of that 2-inch square with that tack down line. It's all lined up. And go ahead and stitch that in place. Okay, let me back this up just a little bit here. Okay, so now you can see my hoop. You can see I have all 4 of my little 2-inch squares. They're all tacked down, so when we get all done, we can flip these all back, and they will be right where we need them to be. Okay, So now the next thing that we are going to do is, if you're worried about these getting stitched down, we're going to just put a little piece of tape to hold these flaps out of the way. So we're going to fold them back and tape them so that they don't get stitched over, because we don't want them stitched over, and hold them out of place. So I'm just going to grab some tape here. And it doesn't have to be a big piece. We're just going to fold these corners back and put a little bit of tape in there. Fold that up out of the way. Put some tape on there. And again with this corner, fold that up out of the way. Put some tape on there. Okay. Now you can see I've got them all taped out of the way. That's how they should look. We're going to put our hoop back on our machine. And we are still going to be using the white thread. We're going to use the white thread throughout almost all of the project today. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stitch out the placement line. Elaine was asking what kind of stabilizer. I just have aqua mesh stabilizer. Okay. And now we are going to stitch out that placement line. Kathleen is asking, just curious why some did not get a CD. So the company that we are using for this design, they provided in the instructions an instant download code instead of a CD. So that's just how they chose to package their product. Okay. So now we have this little center of our snowflake stitched here. This is our placement line for our batting. So I'm just going to use my little batting strip, place that right in there so it's completely covered all the way around. And now I can tack this down. So I'm going to put my hook back on the machine and tack that batting down. Okay, now you need to have your scissors handy, because what we are going to do is, you can see that this batting, you can kind of see the indent there, it's tacked down. What I want to do is go ahead and trim all this around the outside of that stitch line. So we're going to leave the batting in the center. We're going to get rid of all the stuff on the outside. So let me go ahead and stitch that out, or cut that out. I'm going to cut that and then I'll show you what it looks like once I get it cut. Now, as you're cutting this, it's really important that you don't put any extra pressure on the center of your hoop, because you don't want to distort the tightness of your stabilizer in your hoop, because it can make the spacing be off in your embroidery design. So if you're cutting this with your hoop in your lap, just be super careful that you're not adding any pressure to the center of your hoop. Or if you're afraid of that happening, just put your hoop on a flat surface, like your cutting board or something like that. Okay, so there it is, all trimmed out. There's a little thread, but it's not attached to anything. It's just because, you know, the dry air and the static, everything likes to stick where it shouldn't. Okay, so that's what it should look like. Now what we're going to do is, remember we had to cut those 4-inch squares of our white fabric with the little polka dots on there? You want to make sure that your polka dots are right side up, and we're going to go ahead and place that so it completely covers that little piece of batting. So the little piece of batting is underneath there. We're going to place it over the top. Now we're going to stitch that in place. Celia was asking what kind of scissors I was using. I was just using my little Tula Pink duckbill 4-inch scissors. Jean was asking what Bernina machine I'm using. I am using the Bernina 880 Crystal Edition. Isn't it pretty with all these little crystals on there? We do have a few of these available at the shop, so if you're interested in a machine, give us a call, stop in and see us. We'd love to show you these beautiful machines. Okay, so now you can see that that is all tacked down around that batting. Again, I'm going to go ahead with my scissors and cut all the excess away from the outside. And Celia was asking about the scissors. There's lots of different embroidery scissors out there. For embroidery, the main thing that I look for in a scissors when I'm looking for them is that they are sharp and that they have a curve to them. The curve helps so you can get down nice and close to your project. There's that little thread again. Okay. So now I have my white fabric all cut out. So now we got a few minutes because what it's going to do, it's going to stitch the detail of the snowflake. So what you see in blue here is what it's going to stitch out, and my machine's telling me it's going to take about 21 minutes to stitch that out. So this is what I was talking about, where you have that extra time to go ahead and fuse that shape flex on the rest of your background pieces. Cut any more fabric that you need to cut. Or if you want to just sit back and watch the machine do its thing, you can do that as well. Okay, while that is stitching out, I'm going to bring you back over here to me. Yes. Judy mentioned that the directions do talk about organza. If you have organza, you can use that as another layer on top of your white fabric. I chose not to use the organza in my project, but if you have organza and you want to use it up, go ahead and layer that up. It will be beautiful. Donna's asking if I could repeat my email address. It is kendra@pnqs.net. kendra@pnqs.net. Okay, so one of the things I mentioned at the beginning, when you sign up for our embroidery club, we give away lots and lots of door prizes, and that is super fun. So I have some door prizes back here. Since our machine is busy stitching out, this is a great time to go over those and do some fun little giveaways. Let me grab them. Okay, so I have a little Christmas bag here. I know it's not Christmas season anymore. We're past that, but this is the only thing that I could find to throw all your names in. So everybody that signed up for this class, I have your names. They're on a little slip of paper, and they are in this bag. So we're going to draw out of this bag for our door prizes. And the first thing that I have to give away is a Jubilee Amanda Murphy layer cake. So these are some beautiful fabrics for this layer cake to give away, and the winner of this is Sandy Elfstrom. So congratulations, Sandy, this is for you. So just a quick little word about the door prizes. I'll put your little name on the back of this so we make sure that this one gets to you. So if you get chosen for a door prize, they will be available for you to pick up in our shop, or if you place an online order while you're watching today, if there's anything that you think that you need, we'll include them in your order for you. So just that is how you get your projects, just so you, or not projects, but how you get your door prizes. So if you want to sign up for February's embroidery club, we'll send it with you there. Okay, so I'll set that aside and we'll get that to you, Sandy. Okay, what was I going to talk about next? Let's talk about the February embroidery club because we've mentioned that a couple of times. So again, each month we do something a little bit differently. So for February, we are going to be making this cute little Valentine's Day heart. This is where we are going to stitch this all out on felt. So we're going to make this. You can make it into like a little pillow. Maybe you want to add some little ground walnut shells in there and make it into a little pin cushion. You can do that as well. So that is our February embroidery club, and it is happening on February 18th at 10 a.m. here live on our Facebook page. So if you are watching from somewhere not local to our shop, you can go online, sign up for it. We will send you everything that you need so that you can stitch right along with us. So here is the design, and there's a little glare, and I'll try to hold it so you don't see it, but it's from the heart, the OESD collection. Let me show you the back. There's all these fun little designs on there. So we're just going to be stitching out one, but you will get the design for all of these, so you can make all of these projects. So the cost is $29.99, and included with the designs, you will also get some white felt, and you're going to get a little spool of the red thread to use for that project as well. So that is what we are going to be doing. You could also add a little ribbon on here, make a little ornament. I keep saying that I would like to put a small little Christmas tree in my sewing room and then just change out the decorations for every season, if I have time for that. That time, that's the tricky part. Okay. So that is our February embroidery club. So I hope that you guys can join us for that. Let's do another door prize. I have a book. It's called The Log Cabin Block. This is our next door prize, and the winner for this one is Jeff Nordquist. So congratulations, Jeff. You get the Log Cabin Block book. Okay, let's take a peek at what is happening with our snowflake. Move it down here, zoom it in a little bit so you can see what's happening. It's kind of hard to see with the light because there's so much light being, it's kind of a glare. Sherry's asking, how do you obtain your prize? You can either stop in at the shop and get it, or if you are not local, if you place an order, we will get it mailed out with your order. Elaine is asking if there's more of those books at the shop. I would have to check and see if we have any more of those. I am not there today, so I can't just check and see. Okay, we got a few minutes left. Let's do a couple more door prizes. So I'm gonna back this out, bring you back over here to me. This is a fun door prize. I see that they commented, Elaine, that yes, they do have one and they will put it at the front counter for you if you would like that Log Cabin book. Okay. The background size of the fabric is 7 by 8.5. And I am using a maxi hoop today. And my batting is just some scrap white polyester batting that I had that I'm using up. Okay, so the next one, door prize, is a good one. It's the Quilting Journal. So if you are all about setting your New Year's resolution goals for your quilting projects, this is great to help you keep track of that. So the winner of this is Judy Hazel. So congratulations, Judy. We will get the Quilting Journal to you. Jeannie's watching. Let's do one more. I have a collection of the cozy winter buttons to give away. And the winner of the buttons is Sandy Moore. So congratulations, Sandy, you will get the button collection. Karen is asking, is the hoop size needed for the monthly embroidery noted with the class details? So once you get, most of the projects that can be done in a smaller size hoop. This is one of the first ones that we've done where we need the larger one. So we will let you know going forward which size. I'm not sure if it has been noted or not, but that is a good point. We will make sure that we know what size hoop is needed for all of the upcoming projects. I know for February you can do that in a small hoop because our little heart is, I mean, this is the heart in comparison to the CD, so it's pretty small. Bring you back over here to the machine and zoom in. So with this little snowflake runner, since it's like just snowflakes, it could be winter, and Valentine's Day is in winter, so you could change out your fabrics if you wanted to and add some reds and whites or do whatever color you would like. And this design doesn't need to be done just in this table runner. You could also do just this snowflake part of it right here if you wanted to do that like on a sweatshirt or on a bag or something fun like that. So there's always different ways that you can use our monthly designs that we choose for our embroidery club. They don't always have to be made into the project that we're making. Marie's asking, how long did it take to finish the table runner? This one took a little bit of time just because you have to make 6 snowflakes and then you go in and you quilt it. and we're going to be doing that part here shortly. So each snowflake takes probably about 20 to 30 minutes to stitch out. So you have to do 6 of them. So I'd say 3 hours minimum, but probably closer to 4 or 5. Celia's asking if we will ever have a class that demonstrates how to do these designs on clothing. So you're basically doing the same process. You're just changing your background fabric. So instead of doing like the outline stitches and all of that, you're just going to forward your design to the snowflake. It's just how you put your how you hoop your sweatshirt if you wanted to do it on there and to add a snowflake or something. So I'm not sure if we will have a class on that or not. We're getting right down to the end. There's only about 2 minutes left. See, Kathleen, it's fun to change up the fabrics a little bit. It's your project. You make it all your own, and there's no limit to creativity. I just love the beautiful satin stitches that are in this project. Marilyn, I do have a completed table runner. I will show you here in just a second. Again, if you're just logging in to watch, let me know where you're watching from. All right, we got our little checkered flag, so we are all done with this one. So I can go ahead and take my hoop off of my machine. There is the snowflake. Look at how cute that is. So we can go ahead and take this project out of the hoop. I'm going to move the rest of my door prizes and everything out of the way. Okay, bring you back over here. Okay, so now I'm just going to set this aside because I want to go ahead and start on our next snowflake right away. So again, I have a piece of my aqua mesh stabilizer already cut for the size of my hoop. Move you over here so you can see my hoop. And here's my background fabric for my next one. I'm just going to put that over here out of the way. I'm going to lay my stabilizer over the bottom part of my hoop. Snap the top black one in place. Make sure it's nice and snug in there. And again, I'm just making sure that I've pushed to the back side so I have that little lip there. Don't want to forget about that. All right. So now this is all ready to go. I'm going to bring it back over to my machine. We're going to get this next snowflake started. And then I will go back and show you what we're going to do with the last one. Okay. So I can hit the little checkered flag on my machine. I'm going to put my hoop on because that's what my machine's telling me to do. Hit the green check mark. Now what I want to do is I'm going to go up to this folder because I'm going to choose the snowflake number 2. So what you want to do is the snowflake that we just made, that we just finished, you need to make 3 of those. 3 of the snowflake number 1s, and you need to do 3 of the snowflake number 2s. So I'm going to choose this folder. I'm going to go out, and now I'm going to choose snowflake number 2. I've already done my other 2 snowflakes of each one, just so that just to shorten up the class a little bit, so that we are not going to be live for, 5 or 6 hours or whatever I thought it would take to finish the whole project. However, I would love to sew with you all day, but I'm sure you guys have other things that you would like to do today as well. Okay, now I'm going to hit the needle and let it know that I'm ready to begin. I'm going to keep everything threaded exactly the same. So I want to go ahead and stitch out that placement line right on my stabilizer. I have my background piece of fabric. It already has the shape flex on the back side, so I'm all ready to go ahead and put that in place. Okay, just like before, you can see my white placement line all the way around here. So I'm going to go ahead and place my background fabric in there. Make sure that it's lined up with that placement line. Put my hoop back on the machine so it's stabilized in there. Line that background piece of fabric up. Now I can go ahead and tack this down in place. And I'm just holding it to make sure it's nice and smooth in there. Okay, so now again we're going to do our corners just like we did the last time. And I'm going to take my little 2-inch piece of my little snowflake gray fabric, put it right side down so my right sides are together, lining up those corners with that outside stitch line. I'm going to put my hoop back on the machine, and then we are just going to tack this down in place. So again, we're going to do the same thing on all 4 corners, just like we did in the first one. It's going to move to the top right-hand corner. And again, I'm going to line that up in there. And then we're going to go ahead and tack this one down. And now the bottom left-hand corner, lining those raw edges of that gray snowflake fabric up with that tack down line. and our final corner. So I will show you what this looks like again once I get them all tacked down. Okay, so there are all 4 of my corners all tacked down. So now again, we're gonna flip these up out of the way and we're just gonna tape them in place so that they don't accidentally get stitched down. So I'm just gonna grab some more tape. Fold these corners back and put some tape on there to hold them. All right, there's all the corners. They're all taped out of the way. So now I can put my hoop back on my machine and I'm gonna stitch the placement line for our batting for the center of our snowflake. And again, these are just your 4-inch squares of your batting, any batting scraps that you have left over. I'm going to place that. Here is my snowflake, the center of my snowflake, the star. I'm going to place my batting completely over the top of it so it's completely covered. Now we can go ahead and tack this down in place. So again, you want 3 snowflake number 1s and 3 snowflake number 2s. This is snowflake number 2 that we're working on. We just completed snowflake number 1. So you should have 6 pieces when you're all finished. Okay, now we have our little center of our snowflake is all tacked down, so I can go ahead and trim around that stitch line to get rid of all that extra on the outside. And again, just being super careful if you're cutting in your lap, not to put any extra pressure on the inside of that hoop. You don't want to pop it out of place. Okay, so there it is, all trimmed down. So now what we want to do is go ahead and put our hoop back on our machine. Take our white piece of fabric with the little white dots on there, and we're going to place that so it's completely covering that center of the snowflake, the little star, all the way around, and we're going to tack that in place. And this Trapunto, it makes like a little pillow with that batting in there, so it adds that little element of dimension to make our projects nice and interesting. My bobbin is flashing at me. I thought it was full. Okay, so there it is tacked down. You can kind of see the little pillow there. So now what I want to do is go ahead and trim all the excess away from the outside of that stitch line. And you want to be just nice and close to that stitch line, as close as you can without cutting into the stitching. Okay, so there it is, all trimmed down. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and start my machine and let it do the stitching for all the details of the snowflake. Everything that's in blue here, that's what's going to stitch out. So that's going to take a little bit of time to stitch that out. So let's get that started. All right, while that is going, I'm going to bring it back over here to me, because while that's stitching, we can do door prizes, but we also have our other snowflake block that we need to just trim that up, get that ready for the next step, and then we can also prep our binding strips. So I'm going to show you how that all works. Okay. Connie's saying, I wonder how it would look if you use 2 pieces of batting. If you use 2 pieces of batting, Connie, it's just going to make it a little bit fluffier. That center, it's going to, or puffier. You can try it and see if you like it. I would just slow the speed of your machine down so you don't have any issues or anything there. But you could try it and see what happens. Okay, so here is our little block. So I'm going to just remove the tape from here. So now what we want to do is, if we look at our instructions on step number 9, is after we removed it from the hoop, we want to go ahead and trim our block to 6.5 by 8 inches. It will be close to those tack down lines, the outside tack down line all the way around from step 2 when we trim the block. So I'm going to just grab my ruler, and I found that trimming these blocks to get them to the 6.5 by 8 inch size, you are just like a 1/16 of an inch, so just tiny, tiny, tiny on the outside of that stitch line. So we're just going to line it all up. And so I'm looking at my 6.5 mark just to make sure it's even on both sides of that outside tack down line from step 2. And I can just go ahead and give this a trim. I'm going to turn this around and do my 6.5 on the other side. Now I'm going to do my 8 inches. My final cut to get it to my 6.5 by 8. If I go to the right line, not 8.5, 6.5 by 8. And there I have it all trimmed down. So now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and trim off what is behind these corners. So we want to trim 1/4 inch beyond that little tack down line that does our little corner stitches. So I'll show you what that looks like. So here's my stitch line. I just did 1/4 inch beyond that stitch line to get rid of the excess in the corner. So I'm going to do that on all 4 sides all the way around. Yes, Connie, my tape dispenser does fit right in. Thank you. It was the perfect addition. All right. So there it is. So now what we can do is go ahead and push these corners out and give them a little press with our iron. Now, when you're ironing this, I'll give you a little tip. There is aqua mesh stabilizer on the back side. So if this gets damp, it's going to pucker your project up temporarily because that aqua mesh is trying to dissolve and go away. So if you use your scissors to just go in and trim away some of that excess stabilizer in the back, or at least trim it around your snowflake, you won't have that. And if you don't use steam when you iron, that will help as well. So we want to make sure we're using a dry iron when we press these. But I'm just cutting around the snowflake so that I don't have to worry about that stabilizer. And again, this is, I just trimmed the stabilizer, so I didn't cut into my project on the front side, just the stabilizer around my snowflake in the back. It's all gonna wash out, so you don't have to worry about it, but that just helps a little bit. Okay, so now what we want to do is just go ahead and press those corners. And I just ran out of bobbin thread. So I will fill up my bobbin. I'm just giving those corners just a little press here. And you want to be careful when you're pressing that you're not pressing on the embroidery stitches of your snowflake. If you need to, you can use the OESD press cloth, which is really nice to just protect your embroidery, to keep those stitches from getting scorched from your iron. And I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. I'm going to fill my bobbin, so I'll bring you over here to see. Judy's asking, will the organza melt with the heat of the iron? That I'm not sure. You can test a little piece of scrap organza to see, but you want to be careful not to mess up your iron either. That's why the OESD press cloth will help to protect any of those delicate fabrics or anything like that. Okay, so I'm just going to fill my bobbin quickly, and again, I'm just using the white OESD bobbin fill thread. Okay, the bobbin is full. We are back in business. I'm just going to back it up a few stitches. I got a little tail here that I want to trim. All right, it is good to go. There you go. Marcia answered and said the organza will melt with the iron. Ask her how she knows. See? Sometimes you just got to test things out and see what happens, or let somebody else test them out for you so you know what not to do. Okay, so here is the OESD press cloth. So if you are using the organza, make sure you're using the OESD press cloth. It just looks like a big piece of batting. It's got nice feel to it, nice weight to it. A little tip, if you do get the OESD press cloth, I have not done this yet, but I need to do this. This is on my list. Maybe I'll do it this afternoon. Choose a really colorful, like, a colorful thread, your favorite color, whatever you want to do, or maybe you want to use like a really cool variegated thread. We have all these fancy decorative stitches on our machine. You could do a fun little decorative stitch all the way around the outside edge of your press cloth. That way you know not to accidentally pick this up and use it as a scrap piece of batting for a small project like we're doing today. I'm sure somebody has done that as well. I had heard that somebody did that, and that's how I know not to do it with this. So just like those fun little tips of the organza melting with the iron, don't use your OESD press cloth as a scrap piece of batting, and that's how we can tell it apart, is by putting a nice little decorative stitch in a fun thread color on the edge. Okay, so that's what that is. This is all trimmed down, it's ready to go. So we just have to hurry up and finish stitching out the rest of our snowflake over here. Marilyn was asking about the finished Trapunto table runner. I have that right here. So this is what it looks like when it's all finished, and you can see the quilting that we are going to do around each one of the snowflakes. There's quilting in the little center here, and the binding that goes around the edge. So that's what it looks like. Sandy says writing with a permanent marker in the corner is a good idea as well. So this is our finished little Trapunto table runner. So while that is stitching out, we can go ahead and get our binding strips ready. So what you want to do is you want to take your dark gray fabric, and you can go ahead and cut them into your 2.5 inch strips for your binding. So I'm going to go ahead and cut mine right now. I'll bring it over here so you can see what I'm doing. So you're going to need 2 strips. Okay, so here are my 2 strips of my binding. What we're going to do is we're going to join these together with a miter. So how I do that is I will take one, lay it right side up on my cut table, and then I'm going to take the other one. So my first strip, I'm going to lay it going horizontal, right side up. My second strip, I'm going to lay it going vertical, and I'm going to match my 2 corners over here. Can you see them? I don't think you can see them. Right there. And it's hard to see because I have a dark gray cutting mat and these are dark gray strips. So my first strip is going right side up horizontal. My second strip is going on top of that, and that is right side down going vertical. Now what I want to do is I'm going to take some pins and I'm just going to pin this. Put a pin in there. So here's a close-up of how that looks. So the bottom strip is going horizontal, the top strip is going vertical, they're right sides together. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to grab a small one, and I'm going to take a marking pencil, and I have my little chalk pencil here, and I'm going to mark a diagonal line. And I marked it in pink so you can see. There is my diagonal line. It's going from this corner right here down to this corner down here. Now I can take this over to my sewing machine and I want to stitch right on that pink line. So I'll bring it over here. And we are going to stitch that right on that pink line. Well, give me 1 second. It doesn't, I need to troubleshoot something on my machine. It doesn't want to stitch. So I'm going to quick stitch this on my other machine over here. Second, I'll let you watch what is happening here. I'm just going to quick switch one out. Okay, just switched out to get this going. So I'm just going to stitch a straight line here. All right. Now you can see the little line that's stitched right through the pink. So I'm going to go ahead and trim these corners off here, just 1/4 of an inch away from that pink line, or the stitch line. So there it is. So now we can go ahead and open this up. So now you can see that they are joined together. So when I open it up, I go ahead and I will press this seam open. And then what we're gonna do is we are going to press this all in half, just like this. And look at that. Our next block is all done. Okay, so we'll come back to the binding strips here in a second. We got our checkered flag, so we're good. We can go ahead and take our hoop off of the machine. There's our second snowflake. So again, we're gonna go ahead and open our hoop up to remove the project from the hoop. We can take the tape off of our corners. And again, we want 3 of these number 2 snowflakes, so we will have a total of 6 snowflakes altogether, 3 number 2s and 3 number 1s. And now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna trim this one down to size. So I'll bring it back over here to my sewing table. And we're just gonna trim this one up. And again, it's 6.5 by 8 that we're trimming to. Now I'll do my 6.5 measurement. And it's just outside of that first placement line. Or I should say not the first placement line, but the tack down line from step number 2. Clean these up and get them out of the way. Okay, so now we're gonna go and we're gonna trim those corners off, just like we did with our first one, 1/4 of an inch away from that outside, or those corner diagonal lines on the outside of the line we want to trim. Clean those up. Okay. Put my ruler over here out of the way. Bring my ironing mat back up here. And again, I'm just going to go in on the back side and trim that aqua mesh stabilizer around my snowflake. So just the stabilizer. And that just helps to keep it so there's no puckering or anything when you press everything. All right, so now we can just take our iron and we're gonna press these little corners out. And again, I'm not touching the iron to any of the embroidery. I'm just staying on the very outside corners. If I was gonna go over the embroidery in the center, I'd use my press cloth. And I'm just going in and pressing those out. All right, so now we have that all pressed. So what we want to do now is, and remember I said I already have my other ones. So here is my other 2 snowflakes and I've already stitched them together. So now we just need to stitch these. And I just need to figure out how I want them on there. So one thing to notice is with your snowflakes that look like this. So this is my 6.5 wide, 8 tall. This snowflake is directional. So on this, there's only 1 point here, and there's 2 points that come off on the bottom. So I'm just paying attention to how I have that placed in here. So I have my 1 point going facing towards the center line in my design or my layout of how I have my snowflakes laid out. So what I need to do now is I'm going to take my 2 snowflakes that I have here and I need to stitch them together. So I'm just going to put them right sides together, and then I'm going to go in with a little pin. And I want my points to match up, so I'm going to eyeball about 1/4 inch down, put a pin in through there so it comes out right in the seam. And you can see it's coming out right there in the seam. And then I'm going to go 1/4 inch here and eyeball it and put that pin in that seam right there. And this is how I like to do it so that my points all match up. That pin is holding those points together. Now I'm going to come in with a second pin, and I'm just going to pin this in place. And these are the extra fine clover pins that I really like. And now I'm going to do the same thing over here on this other side. Go right in that stitch line so I come out right in the seam, eyeball 1/4 inch, put that pin in the seam on the other side at 1/4 inch, come in with another pin and pin it nice and close, and then I can remove my first pin. So now I have, this is all pinned here, so I can stitch these 2 snowflakes together with a 1/4 inch seam across the top. So I'm going to bring it over here to my other machine. And I had dark gray thread in the top for the binding. I'm just going to switch it over to the white. It really doesn't matter that much, but I'm kind of fussy about that stuff, so I'm just going to change it over to the white thread real quick. So now that you have all 6 of your embroidery blocks done, we just need to lay them out and get them all stitched together, and that's what we're doing right now. And again, I'm just going to stitch these together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Pull out my pin. Just making sure everything is still lined up. Pull out my pin. So these are stitched together. Everything looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my iron and I'm going to iron this seam. In your instructions, it tells you can iron them to one side or the other. And I am going to just go ahead and iron this seam open because I feel like it just lays a little more flat. Oops. I got the tripod wrapped around my iron. Just going in there and just pressing the seam out so it's nice and flat. Again, just be careful so you're not ironing over your embroidery. And again, I'm going to lay this out so I can see the direction that it wants to go. So now I'm going to take these two pieces that I just sewed together and sew them onto the four, excuse me, the four that I already have here. I'm going to start in the middle, line up those seams, put a pin in there, and then I'm going to sit down to do this because I don't want to drop anything. You know how sometimes it's just easier to, from standing up to sitting down, just to get it all just the way you want. Gotta do what's comfortable. And again, I'm lining up my little corner pieces exactly the same way as I just did with the last one. Making sure everything is all lined up. You also have to make sure that the center points are all lined up as well. Okay, so now I have this all pinned across the top, so now I can take this back over to my sewing machine and I'm going to stitch 1/4 of an inch all the way along that raw edge. So I'll bring it back over here. Keep rolling over this bag of door prizes behind me. Okay, we're going to stitch this out. Pull that pin so I don't stitch over it. all lined up, making sure it stays where it needs to be in just a 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so here it is. This is all 6 of our snowflakes all put together. This is what you want to do. I'm going to go back and just press that one seam that I just stitched, and then we're ready to go on to the next step. Get this tripod set right here. Okay, again, I'm going to open this up, and I'm just going to give this little seam a press. And again, I like mine pressed open. If you want to press yours just to one side, you can totally do that. That's fine. Flip it to the front side and give it one final little press here. I'm just kind of pressing it with the toe or the tip of my iron just to make sure that I'm not hitting my embroidery. Okay. So there it all is, all pressed out. So now what we need to do is we need to take our backing piece, which is going to be this gray fabric that we have left over from our background pieces. And you want to have a piece of this that is big enough for your runner, for all 6 pieces of your runner. And we're just going to layer it up. And you'll have plenty. You can go ahead and cut this piece in half on the fold so that you don't have a whole lot extra that's hanging in your way. It's easier to cut this little fold off. Let me do that real quick. This out of my way. Okay, so I'll try not to stand in front of the camera so you can see what I'm doing here. So I have my white or my light gray backing piece all laid out here. And now I also have a piece of extra batting that is the size of my project. There's just some little pieces stuck to there. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to just make sure that I have enough backing and enough batting that it's going to be the right size for my project. And you can see that I have enough hanging around on all 4 sides. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray baste this all 3 layers of this together. So to do that, you can use the 505 temporary spray adhesive, or the Sulky 2000, whichever you would prefer to use. And you're just going to spray baste this. So to spray baste it, I just will spray that on there. And then I can fold this back. and just smooth it out. Now I can fold up the other side, spray that on there. And you just want to be careful when you're spraying this so that you don't like get it all over your stuff that's nearby. And now we're going to do the same thing with the back side. You can get a little bit of overspray, and then something that's near it is going to be sticky, but it will wash right off. And if you don't want to spray baste, you can also pin baste it. But we just want these 3 layers to smooth out and be all nice and smooth all together. There, it's all smooth. I'm just going to check the back side, make sure I'm nice and smooth here. Just smoothing everything out, work from the center out. Okay, so now that is all done. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to use my master hooper because I have 3 layers here and I don't want any of that to shift, and it can be a little tricky when you are trying to hoop something thick as in 3 layers of fabric. So I'm going to take my maxi hoop, I'm going to attach it to my master hooper. And we have the extra hanging off the side, so that way we can get in and get everything right where we want it. I also need to quickly grab my grid for my hoop, because we want to make sure that we are getting everything hooped nice and straight. So I have my grid placed in my black hoop so I can line everything up and make sure it's nice and straight. So you can use the lines on the grid to match up with your seam lines on your project. And we're just going to get it hooked in there. And before I tighten it down, I'm just going to double check and make sure I'm straight, and I need to just adjust this just a little bit up here in this top corner. And it looks pretty good there, so I'm good. I'm just going to tighten this down. And then we can take our hoop off of our master hooper. So you can see, and I'll show you how I lined this up. Here's the grid in my hoop. And I lined up this seam line over here with this line on my grid, so it's nice and straight. Well, if the grid would stay in the hoop. It's hard to do this and hold it up so you can see on the camera, but let me try again. So there is, this keeps popping out, but this line is lined up with the seam line underneath all the way down. So I have it nice and straight. Okay, the other thing that we quickly need to do that I forgot to do before I hooped this is just mark the centers of these snowflakes. And I have my centers marked of my snowflakes over here. You can see, if you can see, there's just a pale little pink dot right here. That's marking the center of my snowflakes. So I want to mark my snowflakes in the same spots. And I'm just going to go off of where that one is, because that is what we are going to do what we're gonna need to line up our quilting. So you want to mark the center of your design. So when you measure them, we had them trimmed 6.5 by 8. So if we measure from the outside corners, we're going to measure in 3.25 by 4. So 3.25 by 4 is going to be our center. So I have those marked. So now I can take my hoop back over to the machine and we're going to do the quilting. Move you back over here. Yes, Celia says she has the sewing suite with the hooper and she trusts that it will work the same. Yes, it will. Okay, so now when you are doing the quilting, your thread is going to show on the bottom and it's going to show on the top. So you want to make sure that you are using the same thread on the bottom as you are using on the top. Let me just see here. Just have to make sure I grab the right spool of thread to match my bobbin. And here it is. So for my thread, I'm using Isacord 105. It's a light gray color on the top, and I have the same thing wound on my bobbin. So we're just going to change that out. And change out my bobbin. Okay, so now I can go ahead and put my hoop on the machine. I just want to be careful when I'm putting my hoop on the machine that all of this extra that's hanging off on the right side of my hoop is not folded up underneath the hoop, because that will create a mess. So you can use Wonder Clips or just kind of fold it up off to the side and watch it. Okay, so I still have my checkered flag here. I'm going to go ahead and touch the checkered flag. I'm going to go back to the folder. And what I want to do is I want to choose Snowflake Quilting 1. So you'll notice the shape of your snowflake quilting. Let me zoom in so you can see. It matches the shape of your snowflake. It's got like the 6 points to it. So that's what we're going to choose. So now what we want to do is we had marked the center spot, and I marked mine. You can use a water soluble pen, or you can use just a piece of chalk. I used some pink chalk to mark that so it's easy for you to see. So now we're going to go into the eye. I'm using Isacord color 105. Okay. So we're going to go into the eye. And yes, I used the Isacord in the same color that I'm using on the top is the same color that I use in the bobbin. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose check. And I want to go into the center of the design. And you can see, let me adjust this a little bit so you can see where the needle is. So you can see my needle is way down here. That's not in the center of my snowflake because my snowflake is up here. So I'm going to use the dials on my machine and I'm going to dial it in so that when I drop my needle, it's going to drop right on that little pink dot that I made on my snowflake. So I'm going to just adjust the needle, the dials on my machine, and move that quilting design. And you can see it moving in the screen here. And hopefully it will stay within the design. The design will stay within the hoop, and it should. And I'm getting close. Just adjust it just a touch more. Just a tiny touch more. Okay, now when I drop my needle, it comes down right on that little pink dot. And I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me zoom in, see if I can zoom in a little bit more. So when I drop my needle, it's coming down right on that little pink dot there. And that's right where I want it to be. So I know that I'm good. So I can raise my needle up. I'm going to hit the, let me back you up a little bit so you can see my screen. I'm going to hit the X on my machine. I'm going to go to the needle and I'm ready to start the quilting. So I can go ahead and start that. This is why we want our project hooped straight, and that's why we're using the seam lines to make sure everything is hooped straight. So it doesn't matter, like I see Kathleen's is doing it on a Spirit. Every brand of machine has that centering tool or the check. So you should be able to move your project so that it matches up when you drop the needle right down with your mark of your center piece. While this is stitching out real quick, we have a couple more door prizes to give away. Let me back up a little bit here. Let's do another door prize quickly. Let's see. I have a Life is a Beach napkin to give away with these. Wouldn't you love to be on a beach right now? Let's see. The winner of this one is Kathleen Johnson. So we will get this napkin to you, Kathleen. Congratulations. And I have a super cute little glittery wallet, or you could use this as a little needle case. It's super cute. It's got a little zipper on it. The winner of this one is Marie Hall. So congratulations, Marie. We'll get you that. All right. I'm going to bring you back over here to the machine. Zoom you in so you can see what I'm doing. We got the checkered flag, so we are all done. So I'm going to just hit the checkered flag. Now I'm going to go to the folder, and I'm going to go out again. There's this little snowflake number 3. This snowflake number 3 is for our little diamonds on that little gray snowflake fabric. So again, you can see on my screen, it's just this itty bitty little snowflake right here. So I'm going to go back to the eye again, go back to my check, and I want to go into, let me move it over so you can see, move it into the center. And now I can use my dials over here on the side to move my needle so it falls right in the crosshairs of that seam. And I'll show you that here in a second. So I'm just going to move it over. Move it up just a little bit. I'll zoom you in so you can see what I'm doing here. And if I drop this down, it's dropping down so my needle is right in the crosshairs. And I'll show you. Let me just take this off so I can show you. But I want my needle to drop right in the crosshairs right here of where these seam lines all come together. So this is the piece that is getting embroidered now. So I have it right where I want it. Let me back this up a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch that little snowflake there. Oh, I got to go out, hit the needle, and stitch that snowflake. Okay, we got our checkered flag again. So I'm going to hit the checkered flag. I'm going to go to the folder. I'm going to go out again. And now I'm going to choose Snowflake Quilting number 2. So the thing to notice on this Snowflake Quilting number 1 is you have your 1 point up here, your 2 points on the bottom. You want to make sure that that matches the direction of your snowflake for snowflake number 2. So again, we're going to go into the eye, we're going to go into the check, we're going to hit the center, and we're going to use our dials again over here on the side to move the center of this design, this little crosshairs right in the center, so that it lines up with that pink mark on the center of our snowflake. So I'm just going to move this. So the trick is when you're hooping this, is to get it hooped so that you can do all 3 designs in one hooping, so you don't have to keep moving your hoop for every single snowflake, because that's going to just help you with your time a little bit. Drop that needle, and I need to adjust it just a little bit more. Drop that down. And I'm right on that pink dot, so I can go ahead and back out, hit my needle, and I'm ready to begin stitching this all out. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that out. And this snowflake design is just going to echo the embroidery snowflake there. While that is stitching, I have left another door prize, or 2 quickly. I remember I said we had lots of them to go through today. So the next thing that I have to give away, I'll bring it back over here to me, is the handy towel cowl. So it has a dish towel in there and the sew by number, and Louise Prescott gets this one, so congratulations, Louise. We will get this one to you. The next door prize that I have to give away is a hot stuff oven mitt. So this is the silicone part for the oven mitt. And the winner of this one is Deanne Hill. So congratulations, Deanne. We will get this out to you. We'll come back for some more door prizes in a minute. I have a few left. All right. So we are all done with the quilting in this hooping. Let me show you what it looks like on the back side. You can see what it looks like there on the back. So now we just need to adjust our hoop, rehoop, so we can do the center stars next. So let me move you over here so you can watch this process. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and take my hoop out of the project, or my project out of the hoop. I need my grid But I'm gonna attach my hoop to the master hooper. I'll lay that in there. Get this all ready to go. Grab my grid. Pop that in the hoop so I can get all lined up. And I think looks pretty good there. I can get this snapped in and then adjust as needed. And this side needs to come over a little bit. Pretty darn straight. Just keep that in the hoop. You kind of got to use your elbow and your fingers to kind of be able to reach and hold everything the way it needs to go. But that looks pretty darn good to me. So now I'm just going to hold it there, reach over here and tighten it up. Take this off, give it a little press to make sure that it doesn't come out of the hoop, that everything's in there nice and securely. Make sure it's nice and tight. Check the back side, make sure I don't have any little lumps or loops or anything. Now I'm ready to go line my machine up and do the next quilting. All right, so now I can put my hoop back on the machine. Now I can hit my checkered flag. I'm going to zoom you in a little bit so you can see what's happening here. Okay, so now I'm going to go, well, let me just take my hoop off the machine real quick to show you this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to quilt this one first. But if you notice, my two are coming off up here and my one is coming off down here. So I need to rotate the design on my screen. And what I mean by all of that is, and I'm making sure I don't have anything underneath my hoop. You can see here's my 1 point coming off the snowflake here. My 2 points are down here. So I need that to rotate. So I'm going to go to my edit button, go into the eye, and there's this little circle up here in the corner. I'm going to hit that, and then I can hit 90 degrees and 90 degrees because I need it to do a full 180. Now I can go to the breadcrumb at the top, just hit the little eye, back it up, go down to my check, and do everything exactly the same. I want to be in the center, so I'm going to hit my little bullseye for the center. And now I'm going to use my dials to move the design so that the center of the snowflake, when I drop my needle, comes down right in my little pink mark in the center of that snowflake. Keep moving it up there. I'm getting close. I'm going to check. Just need to come over just a little bit more. A little bit more. Perfect. All right. So now I am got it. So when I drop my needle, it comes down right on my pink dot that I made to mark the center of my snowflake. I can hit my X, go to my needle, tell it I'm ready to begin. stitch it out good. Like I said, we had a couple more door prizes to give away. Move you back over here to me. Woo. Okay. I have a pattern, and this pattern is for some, it's a sewing pattern for some pajama pants, it looks like, so super cute. I was just saying we have some beautiful woven fabrics that just came into the quilt shop, and they would make excellent pajama pants. So that's on my list of something to do as well. So Ruth Mary Prevey, this pattern is coming your way, so congratulations. The next prize I have is a pattern called Designer Shoes, like shoe fly shoes. And the winner of this is Ann Thill. So congratulations, Ann, you get this pattern. Okay, so we are all done with the quilting on that. We're gonna go back and we're gonna do the quilting in our little gray center square there. So I'm gonna go to my folder, go up, choose my little snowflake number 3, this little guy. Again, do the same thing, go to check, hit the center. Let me zoom in so you can see. And I'm going to move this so my needle comes down right in the crosshairs of those seams. Almost there, just a tiny bit more. Perfect. All right, now I can hit my X, go to my needle, and start. Okay, while that's stitching out, I have 2 more little door prizes to give away. One is Stitch Pink. It's a little Moda little notepad. And the winner of that one is Joni Johnson. So congratulations, Joni. You get this cute little pink notebook. And the last thing I have to give away is a tape measure. Who couldn't use another tape measure? The winner of that one is Belinda Hartnett. So congratulations, Belinda. We will get that to you. Okay. Back over here to the machine. Let me zoom you in. We can hit the checkered flag because we are done. We're going to go to our folder, and we want to choose Snowflake Quilting number 1 again, because that is going to match the shape of our next snowflake that we have down here. And again, we're going to go into the eye. We're going to go down to check, hit the center because we want it to be in the center. We're going to move so our needle comes down in the center of our snowflake that we marked with the little pink chalk. Almost there, just a touch more. Perfect. Okay, we can hit the X to go out. We're going to go down to our needle, and let me move this a little bit so you can see what's happening there, and we're ready to start stitching that out. So you can see the quilting part of it goes fairly quickly. While that's stitching out, I'm going to change my thread again back on my sewing machine to get ready to do the binding. All right, we're all finished with that one. So now I can go ahead and take my hoop off of my machine. Let me back you up a little bit so you can see how that turned out. It looks great. So now I can go ahead and take my project out of the hoop. We just have our last 2 snowflakes to do the quilting on. I'm going to move you back over here. I'm going to hook my master hooper on to my hoop. And then I'm just going to slide this over. Again, I'm going to use my grid. Pop that into my hoop so I can make sure everything is lined up straight. And I just am sliding my project over. I pretty much kept the hoop in the exact same spot. Just sliding it over. Get that walked around so that I can line up the grid with the seam lines of where I put the snowflakes together. Everything looks pretty straight in there, so I can just tighten it up. Give it a little press all the way around. Take it off, use my thumbs to press that inner one to the back just a little. Just checking the back side to make sure it's nice and smooth. Everything was lined up on the front. So now I can take this back over to my machine and I'm ready to do some more quilting. Any tips if you don't have the master hooper? You can, if you don't have the master hooper, you can use like, if you have like some shelf liner or something that has a little bit of a grip to it, that will help to lay your hoop on there. There's also a product that we have at the quilt shop. It is like it looks like a cutting mat, but it is not a cutting mat. It just has the squares and everything on there to help you line stuff up, but it has a grip. We'll post a link to it so I can show you what that is. But that's a great thing to use, like if you're going to retreats and you're doing some embroidery there and you want to use something that's non-slip like the master hooper. But the master hooper can be kind of heavy to carry to retreats, so this is a great travel option. But it's also a great option to have in your sewing room. And I have one. Let me pull it out. I'm going to get this stitching and I'll pull it out and show you what it is. And then we'll post a link for it as well. Okay, so I have that on there. I'm going to hit my checkered flag. Since we already have this design lined up, yeah, I thought it felt like it wasn't completely on there. Make sure your hoop is completely on. Okay, since we already have this design pulled up, we're going to go ahead and stitch out this snowflake that's down here on the bottom. I'm going to go to my edit, into the eye, hit my check. Hit the center button again. I'll zoom in so you can see. And then I'm just going to move this over and line it up so the needle is lined up with my little pink mark that marks the center of my snowflake on the fabric. Okay, it's all lined up. I'm good to go. I can hit the X, go down and hit my needle, and stitch that out. I thought I had it handy to pull it out to show you, but it must be tucked away in my luggage. So that's not very handy to show you. Okay, and now we are going to go up into our other snowflake and find our center in the check again. Oh, we gotta hit our center. And then we are gonna move it up. Find our center, drop the needle, it's right there. We're ready to go ahead and stitch that one out. While that is stitching out, we have those that binding strip that I need to just go ahead and get that pressed in half. I'm going to do that real quick. All right, so we are all completed with our quilting in the hoop. So we can go ahead and take it out of the, we can take our hoop out, our project out of the hoop. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take, I'm gonna bring it back over here. And I'm just going to set this aside for right now. I just have one little piece left to press for this binding strip, where I'm pressing this binding strip in half. Okay, so that's all done. I can get my ironing mat out of the way. Now what we're going to do is we are going to trim our project. So we just want to go ahead and trim it just like we would trim a, I gotta grab my ruler, trim a quilt after it's done quilting. So I'm just going to line this up with the edge, grab my rotary cutter, give it a trim, line it up on the other edge, Give it a trim. And then trim our two sides. Okay, so now everything has been trimmed down to size. We don't have any more of that extra on the outside. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I bind this. So what I do when I bind it is I start with the back side and stitch it onto the back side, and then I fold it over and stitch it onto the front. So there is also a video on how to bind your quilts in the instructions, and you can follow that if you'd like to, or if you have a special way that you like to bind that works out well for you, you can do it that way as well. Okay, so I'm going to bring you over here to the machine to show you how I do this. Okay, so I'm going to leave a tail up here because I need a little bit of a tail for joining. So I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to start close to the end, just a couple of inches from the end. And get this bag out of here. And I'm just going to stitch this 1/4 of an inch all the way around on the back side of my quilt. I'm going to do just a little back stitch just to secure it. And I'm going to stitch it all the way to the end. And I have my 1/4 inch foot on so I can see. I don't want to stitch off the end. I want to stitch up to 1/4 of an inch. So I can see where my my quilt sandwich ends underneath. And I can see my little notch in my foot that I'm 1/4 of an inch. And it's all lined up there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise my presser foot. I'm going to zoom you in so you can see what I'm doing here. Raise my presser foot. Now I'm going to turn this. And now I'm going to back stitch right off the edge. Now I can pull this forward because I'm going to grab my tail over here and I'm going to fold this up. And I want it folded up so my raw edge is down here so you can kind of see how it's folded up. Now I'm going to hold this because I want this corner. I'm going to hold this and I'm going to bring it straight back down. So there's a little fold in the corner, but my raw edge is lined up with the edge of my quilt sandwich underneath there. Now I'm going to bring this back. I'm looking at my 1/4 of an inch mark on my stitch plate. I'm going to hold the edge of my quilt sandwich snug to the needle in the back and right up snug to that 1/4 of an inch on my stitch plate. And I'm going to stitch 1/4 of an inch all the way down this edge until I get within 1/4 of an inch of my next corner, and then I'm going to stop and then I'll repeat the process. So this month, it's not just about embroidery. There's a little bit of sewing as well. So I'm going to go all the way until I can see that bottom edge of the quilt sandwich is lined up with the little 1/4 of an inch notch in my presser foot. Raise it with my needle down, pivot my project, back stitch off the edge. Raise my presser foot again. I can pull this project out. I'm going to fold this so the raw edge is going back towards the needle. So you can see it's back towards the needle. The raw edge of my binding up here is lined up with the raw edge of my quilt sandwich down here. And then I'm going to fold it forward, keeping that fold in there. My raw edges are lined up again here on the side. Bring this back snug to the needle, but my raw edge is lined up with my 1/4 inch mark on my stitch plate. And sew down to my other corner, stopping when I get a 1/4 inch to the end. There's a lot of different techniques for binding quilts out there, and I feel like you just need to do the one that works best for you. And again, I'm stopping when I get to within a 1/4 inch to the edge. Lifting my presser foot with my needle still down and backing out the edge. Lift my presser foot again, pull my project out, fold this binding strip straight back so the edges are lined up on the right hand side. Fold this down again. Bring it back snug to the needle. Raw edges are snug to that 1/4 inch line, and stitch my next side. Raise my presser foot, leave the needle down, back stitch off the end. Lift the presser foot again, fold it straight back. Now fold it straight down. Now I'm coming up to where I started, so I want to make sure that I leave myself enough space and I can trim. So you can see the space that I have left in there. Let me back this up so you can see the space that I have left, but I need to join my two ends. So I'm going to take you over to my cutting table and show you how I do that. Okay, so here's a little trick. If you take, and I'm just going to trim off the selvage on this one binding edge right here. Make sure you can see everything. Trim that off. Now I'm going to use this little scrap that I just trimmed off as my measuring piece because I want to measure that same length as my overlap. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here to my pieces. This is my long tail. I'm going to just lay this down so that the raw edges are all lined up even here. And then I'm going to take this short piece from the other end, line that up so it goes this way. Now I can see where my raw edge is right here. This is where I'm going to take my little scrap piece and I'm going to line this up. So if I can line this up, that little scrap piece is underneath there. You can see it right there. I'm going to line it up so when I lay it on here, everything lays nice and flat. Now I'm going to pull this top piece away. Here's my little scrap piece that's measuring, and I want to cut on this end that's even with that little scrap piece. Can you see that? Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. If I can zoom in. So here's my little scrap piece, and I'm just going to cut right here on this side because now I used it to measure so I have the right width of my overlap. Okay, now I can pull all this aside. So now when I lay it over, you can see my overlap. I have the camera in the right angle. You can see my overlap there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to take this. I'm going to open this strip up. place it up like this, take this strip and place it like this. And sometimes this trips me up a little bit because I need to make sure that I have it lined up just right. So I'm going to miter these edges again. So I have it laid out. Hopefully you can see how I have this. But I have it so that my right sides are together and they're forming this little triangle right here. And I'm just going to take my pins and I am going to put a little pin in there just to test it before I sew it to make sure that I stitched it right. It's easier to take out a pin than it is to take out the stitching, right? And see, when I unfold it, I have a little twist in there. So that's why I pin it first, because I have this piece twisted. This one is right. This one down here is twisted wrong. So if I do it this way, so it's coming off the edge. So the first way I showed you is the way not to do it. Hopefully this way is the way to do it. And looky there, that's how it works. So instead of going up into the quilt, come down off the edge and have it lined up. So I'm going to show you again, just because the camera angle is kind of funny right here. And back it up just a little bit so you can see. So we're going to take this folded edge from the left side, and it's going to be right side up coming down off the quilt, and then we're going to open this other one so we're looking at the back side of the fabric, and we're going to bring it down and place it over the top. And it's still, sorry, this camera angle is a little funny. So this one, we're opening it, bringing it down off the edge like this. This is the top one. We're going to open it and bring it right side up, down off the edge like this. We're going to line up those little points. And then we're going to put some pins in there to hold everything so it's all lined up so we can stitch that. So now my pins are holding that for me. So now I can take my chalk pencil and my ruler and I'm just going to mark my diagonal line that I need to stitch on. And I'm lining it up with the outside triangles, or corners I should say, to make my triangle. So now you can see that pink line that's in there. That's what I'm going to stitch on. Bring it back over here to the machine. We're just going to stitch a straight line. Take out our pins. Now when we fold this back, it lays nice and flat, but we need to just go in there and just trim the little dog ears on the outside of what we just stitched. So I'm going to trim 1/4 of an inch away from this pink line. All right. I'm bringing it back over here. So I can open this up and just kind of finger press it. Making sure everything stays nice and flat. And we're just going to finish stitching our line all the way down this edge. So I'll do that and I'll show you what it looks like, and then we'll move on to the next step. Just gonna make sure it's nice and flat in there because I can feel it kind of bunched up a little bit. And you can press this too. I just am trying to do it so it doesn't take up so much time. And we're just stitching 1/4 inch to the edge. All right, so now it's all stitched. So now I can just go ahead and we're gonna just fold this all back so that it folds over to the front side. And I'm gonna quick just do a little change of my machine here and change my stitch plate and my foot. So I'm changing my stitch plate over to my 9mm stitch plate from my straight stitch plate. And I'm just putting my walking foot on because I like to use my walking foot when I do a binding. There it goes. All right, now I stitch, switch my stitch to a number 4, the running zigzag, and then I'm just going to elongate that out to a 1.5. And I can fold this over to the front side. If you want to press it, you can, or you don't need to. Fold this over to the front side, and I'm going to line this up with the edge of the inside edge of the toe of my walking foot. Drop my foot down, and I'm ready to begin. I'm just going to work my way down that edge to the corner. And when I get close to that bottom corner, I'm going to start thinking about mitering this bottom corner here. So to do that, I just fold the bottom corner up first, press it all the way out to the edge to make my fold, and then I can fold this back in. If you need to add a pin in there to hold it, you can. Otherwise, if you use like a stiletto or something to hold it, that works too. I'm going to see if I can do without either. And I work right into that corner. Lift my presser foot. I can pivot and stitch right back out. And that's all there is to it. Now I'm just going to finish down this side. bottom corner, I'm going to fold my bottom edge up first, miter that corner, push it out to the edge to create that fold, and then fold it back in and hold it. Lift the presser foot, pivot around that corner. Oops. Just got to make sure that that lip stays underneath. I want the fold of the binding to stay underneath that toe of the presser foot. And we're almost done. And of course I'd run out of bobbin thread. Okay, so I'll show you. This is the top, and that's how that looks when it goes all the way around with that stitch to make the binding on the quilt. And it looks great on the back side as well. So that's how I do my binding. And if you have another way that you do your binding and you like how that works, that's good. You can finish it off however you would like. But that is our January embroidery club. And next month, again, we're going to be doing that cute little heart that I showed earlier. And that's happening on February 18th. So if you are watching today and you did not get to join in with our project because you didn't sign up in time, you have plenty of time to sign up for the February one. Again, you can go to pnqs.net, look for clubs, classes, and events, and you will see the February embroidery club. Sign up there. We can mail you everything if you're not local. If you're local, stop in and see us. If you have any questions, make sure you go ahead and leave comments on this link, and I will answer those and get back to you. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the shop or next month, February 18th, for our February embroidery club. So until then, see you guys next time. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know.